back to Downs Construction. Today we're going to take this closet and turn it into a doorway. We are going to do turn-by-turn, step-by-step directions to show you guys at home how to turn any area available into a doorway, how to install a door where there isn't one, the ramifications on both the inside and the outside, how to rectify all of it, and most importantly, how to look like it's always been a part of your home. The best part of construction, the part when it looks most complete, is when it looks like it's always been a part of your home. So follow along with us today. We hope to answer any questions you might have on how to do this process. If you like what you see, please watch to the end. Please like, follow, and subscribe, as that would really help this channel out a lot. First things first, the homeowner has identified they want a 30-inch door in this space. So we find center. We find center of this wall, and we mark 16 inches to the left and 16 inches to the right. Why? Because it's going to be about 31.5 inches with the jambs on. We want 32 inches for our rough opening. So we mark our 32, we mark our 16, we mark our center, 16 left, 16 right, and then we're gonna go 82 up. Why? Like I said, we want the rough opening. After we get our little tiny marks of what we know we're absolutely gonna be cutting away, we turn our attention to our laser. We get our laser beam, we set it up plumb on a plumb line to the first mark that we made. Why? Because we know that this is 100% perfectly plumb. We're going to check this again with your level. We suggest you check this with your level as well. Again, if you don't have a laser beam, you can do this entirely with a 4-foot level. You take your marks and you just wait till the bubble is in the middle. That's your plumb line. And you mark specifically up all the way to your 84 inches. We marked our red laser line with our plumb lines, but we're taking our level and we're plumbing up to that line to make sure it is 100% perfect. And we are marking all the way down. We're going to be marking that molding, as that molding will eventually be the first thing we cut out. We slide the level up to our next dots that we made at our 16 inches to the left of our center line, and we're marking all the way down. Again, we're going up 82 inches in height, because that's what we want for our rough opening. Now, the same thing we did on the left side, we're mirroring, we're doing on the right side, going straight across with the level to make sure that our line is level. Now, like I said, we're going down to the base molding, and we're just marking up to where that doorway is, and we're going to be cutting out that base molding first and foremost. This is the rough opening of where the door will go. I'm going to remove this sheetrock first, and then I'm going to assess what I have to do next. So I take my multi-tool, I cut out my base trim. I just sit there and I cut through it with the multi-tool, and then I take a step back, and this will come off rather easily once I cut through both sides entirely. Again, I have not sped this video up. I'm trying something new where I'm going step by step in every single step, fully explaining it and not speeding up anything, so hopefully nobody misses anything, so you guys can literally replicate this and do this on your own. Now that I have fully cut through the base, I'm just doing a sample cut through all my sheetrock. I'm seeing if I hit any studs. I'm seeing how it feels. I remove the studs. Your corners might come with it if it's a small enough space. That's fine. Take them away. No problem. Now we're taking our multi-tool. We're trying to make sure we only plunge enough so that it's through the half-inch sheetrock. We don't want to go too much. We don't really know what's behind there. In this situation, we know exactly what's behind there. But in another situation where you may not, just take your time and go gently through. Only make sure you're plunging through about a half-inch. So you really can't be damaging anything. You'll know right away if you're hitting a stud. In this particular instance, I'm not hitting a stud anywhere. So I'm going up. I'm cutting all the way around. I'm going to the right side. Same thing as I was doing on the left side. This is more just a point of view cut. You hold straight on that line. If anything, be to the inside of that line. Why? Because you'll be removing that anyway. On such a small wall like this, there's a good chance you're removing the whole wall, which we're going to get to a little bit later. But for now, we're acting as though it's going to be a direct replacement, an easier replacement. We're going to have to add sheetrock. We're seeing if we can just cut out the opening that we need and get away with not having to expand any further. If we do, maybe we can attack that from the outside. We don't know. Making the final cut. And we're going to back away. This is what it looks like when you have the rough cut. We're going to take a hammer. You tap in a couple places you know there's hollow. You tap, you see, you hear if you hear a stud. If you don't hear a stud, you can drive through a little bit further. Gently, all you need is a couple holes you can stick your fingers in, and you'll be able to stick the back of the claw in and your fingers in and pry this doorway exactly open. The sheetrock should come all in one piece for less of a mess, less dust, what have you. If you do this right, there really won't be much dust in this project. You can chop back it up right after. Now you can see we have insulation, we have some studs in the way. These studs are not centered to the space as we need them to be, so we're going to have to open up the entirety of this wall. But for this practice, this is what we would do if we didn't have to. You take your utility knife, you cut the top of the insulation, you remove these vats, and you leave what's above. You step back, assess the situation. Realize, go to the outside. We're going to start undoing the siding in the area of the location where we know we're going to be taking it off and putting it back once we cut it to size. Now, we take off the rest of the sheetrock on that wall, the rest of the insulation. We're going to start cutting the studs out. Use a hacksaw, use a sawzall, cut the nails behind, cut the stud in half, and then pry. Gently pry if you don't know on the other side. We know that on the other side of the sheathing, there's really nothing we can do, so you can pry against it. If this was a wall or something, or there was sheetrock on the other side, you cannot pry against it. Be very careful if it was an interior door you were cutting an opening into. Anyway, so we get this stud out of the way. We start cutting our new stud. The first stud we're going to be installing is going to be our king stud. We still have to get this stud out of the way. This corner stud is not where we need to look at it. It must be tucked a little bit more into the wall so that this doorway will be centered on this wall. Once we get that entirely cut out of the way, it's time to install our king stud on the right. Now we turn our attention to the siding on the outside. Like I said, we're toothing it out. We're taking the siding out. We're putting it in the exact location of where we took it off. We're laying it out on the ground the same way so we can put it right back. There's no mistaken pieces. We don't have any loose cuts. We know exactly where everything goes and why it goes. This will save for a lot of time, and chances are by the time you're putting this back on, you're going to be fighting daylight because you need to get this all done in one day for the majority of it so you can keep this sealed off, keep any air from getting in. So this is going to help with that. Now, tacking up our king stud. As you can see, hammering it into place, making it back so that it is plumb. The biggest thing you want is it to be plumb, and you don't want it to stick out past that sheetrock. Sheetrocking over it, so it's going to be a nailer, and it's going to be a stud. You get it plumb. Once you do that, you're going to pre-drill for your nail holes. You're going to be fastening it to your sill and to your plate up above. Once you get that done, for this, I would recommend using at least a 3.5-inch screw if you don't have a nail gun handy. Pre-drill it, screw it right in, pre-drill it just so you don't crack the wood. Screw it in 3 ways, this way, back up, and you're going to mirror the same over top once you're 100% certain that this king stud is perfectly plumb. Once you know it's plumb, fasten up above and take a step back. Now it's time to cut your jack stud. Jack stud goes next to your king stud, and this is what your header is going to sit on. You want a header to sit over any doorway or over any window. That's going to carry your weight, or that's going to serve as your strength up above. Again, we're still screwing this in. I'm not used to the longer videos where we take our time and thoroughly show everything, but so anyway, that's what we're doing here. Once he gets that in, he has it pre-cut. There you can see it. There is the jack stud. He fastens that to itself. Some of it call it sistering, whatever. He's going to screw it to the existing stud that we just put in. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Here is what's known as our header. It is a 2x8 piece of lumber. In the middle of it is going to be a 1/2-inch sheet of plywood, and then another 2x8 on the outside. Why? Because a 2x4 is 3.5 inches, but if you take 2 pieces of 2x anything, they're only going to be 3 inches. So you need to build out another 1/2 inch. So we take a 1/2-inch piece of plywood to build out just to get to that 3.5 inches to match the 2x4. Now that our king stud is up on our left side, we put in our header. We take our header, we level across, then we measure to see what we have to cut our jack stud to. We then fasten it to our left king stud, and we put our left jack stud underneath. Before we fasten it, we turn our attention back to the right side. We screw in to the king stud and up from underneath the jack stud. We fasten all the way around in this fashion. Then we go back on the other side and we put in our jack stud. Now we're measuring out for our cripple studs, which are just going to be our 2x4 studs. They're going to go over our header. They're going to take the weight and put it on the header as shown. Again, he's just putting the jack stud in, hammering it in, making sure it's plumb, level, and square. He put his cripple stud over top, fastens them into each other. Now he centers his next cripple stud, puts that in, and now he's time to prep for the opening. For the opening, we're cutting on the outside. We have our sheathing exposed, We like to take a 1-inch drill bit and we drill holes in all 4 corners so we see daylight from the outside. That's two things. One, it allows us to slide our sawzall bit in and cut up and down and around, but it also allows us to see exactly where we are on the outside and where we need to stop. We have a man on the outside watching what we're doing to make sure we don't do any more damage than we have to, and we take the sawzall and we cut around the entirety of this opening. Once we're done sawzalling, we step back and our entire opening is now open. So now this is our rough opening. This is what this is called. We need to take out one of the sill plates because we want this door to sit flat and open over this door. We don't have to step up to get out. We want to be able to step right out. Now we take the door jamb, which this is just a pre-hung door with brick molding. We're going to set it in the opening. We're not fastening anything. This is not going to be your final phase. This is just a test phase. We're putting it in here and we're just going to see how it fits, what additional work we might have to do to get this to go in correctly the way we want. Maybe it goes in perfect. We don't know until we try it. Now we see we are good. Now we're going to pick it out. We're going to go back. We're going to go outside. We're going to set the door off on the side. We're going to take our caulking, silicone, sealant, adhesive, all of the above, and we're going to thoroughly spread beneath the sill of the door. So this is going to do two things. This is going to lock it in. It's going to be adhesive. It's going to glue it down. It's going to make it so it doesn't squeak, but also it's going to completely seal it off. It's going to seal it off from the elements. It's going to seal it off from wind, and it's going to seal it off from any little pesky rodents coming in from underneath. Now, you'll notice this doorway is a bit off the ground. This doorway will need one step to get out. The homeowner wants to do that step themselves, so all we're doing right now is focusing on the door installation. Now, we have all of that sealant adhesive in, we're pulling the door in, and we're getting the door into place. We do not want to go in too far with it. We have brick molding on the outside that is perfectly around. That's going to make it so that we can't push the door in too far. It's going to get right to the part that we want. Now we fasten from the brick molding first, and we back up, and we see if all the reveals all the way the same all the way around, but it's plumb, level, and square. First thing we do is remove the hinge screws in the middle of all three hinges. We take those little screws out, and we put a 3.5-inch screw in. We fasten that all the way through. That gets through the door jamb, through the jack stud, into the king stud, fully locking it in. Once that side is done and it's fully plumb, we can turn our attention to the door handle side. This is the side we'll be shimming first. We shim because we want the same reveal, the same air line, the same daylight, the same opening all the way around. See how it looks uniform and it's the same? You shim to get what you need so it looks right. As you shim and get it to the desired look you want, you're going to peel back that weather stripping, but you're going to keep opening and closing the door and making sure it's exactly what you want. You peel back that weather stripping as shown, and you screw in with 3.5-inch screws and completely fasten it in. That fastens in both the door jamb, it locks those shims into place where you want them, and it has your door perfectly plumb, level, and square with the same reveal all the way around it. Next, you score those shims. You can either use a multi-tool, or in this case, a simple knife. You cut it, you score it, you bend it, you snap it, and it comes right off. Don't worry, we're going to be doing sheetrock over this, and then we're going to be putting trim over this as well. First things first, we're going to be insulating in between those crippled studs. We use R15 insulation, putting it in around those. Then we're going to take little pieces of the insulation, a little pink, we're going to pull that off, and we're going to be putting that in around the entirety of the door jamb. We don't want any air to be able to blow into this space. We want it airtight. Next, it's time to turn our attention to the sheetrock. We cut our pieces of our rock, and then we hang them up over the top of the door and around the legs of the door jambs. Now, the majority on the left and the right of the door jambs are going to end up being covered. There's Delaney saying hello. She's helping us out today. She got me pick the door up with me last night, and now she's seeing how the installation is going. Now we're installing the J channel on the outside. It's a color match J channel to match the existing siding. We put that on, and then we start doing the siding into that J channel. Now, the biggest thing you want to do when installing a doorway like this, you want it to look like it's always been there. We're pretty sure by the end of this installation, you'll agree with us, it looks like it's always been a part of the home, and that is the biggest compliment you can get. So you must cut the J around the door, tie the siding into the J, nail the J off, and then tie the siding back in, but you got to start at the bottom up when you're running the siding and nailing the J in as shown. You want the miters on your J's to match the miters on the brick molding. And it looks, there it is, a straight, perfect line on both. And then you tuck the siding behind the J after the J is nailed and fastened in as shown. For this, you're just going to use your basic galvanized roofing nails. You tap them in and you push the siding back into place. You'll hear it click. That's how you know the siding's in place. Now, we have all the sheetrock up. Now it's time to do our first coat of spackle. We're going to be doing the corners, we're going to be doing all the way around, and we're going to be doing taping this as well. So this is going to be coat number 1. When doing this door, you want to make it so it's airtight. You want to make it so you can put... So you want all 3 coats to be able to be done in the same day. So we're using 20-minute joint compound as we're doing this in the essence, because we know that we need to be able to get this done tonight for these purposes. Well, we know we got to come back to sand, but that's fine. We want to be able to put this trim on. So we put the spackle on. Then we take our tape, we fold our tape in half, just like you always do. We put it in our corners, and we go all the way around. Now, there are some tips and some tricks with this 20-minute compound. You got to mix it up yourself. It does set rapidly, but if it is a bit of a colder day and you're doing around the doorway like this, you can get a heat gun to sit there and help you out, if you will. Now, your first coat you're going to go more heavy with, and you want to use the green joint compound for your first coat of this. Excuse me, I should have told you that, because it has an adhesive on it. So this first is going to be the green with the adhesive, and then that's really going to need the heat gun. Because the adhesive helps hold everything together on coat number 1 of joint compound. We spread it, go all the way around, and we continue. You don't make too much of a mess. This is going to be a finished area. This is all going to be painted eventually anyway, but you still take your time and you be neat. You don't want to have to sand like crazy. You don't want to have all these crazy ridges when it's said and done. You want it to look clean. You want it to look pristine, which, by the way, it will. Tricky part is going around these hinges. That's why he's using the smaller trowel as shown there. This is Manuel. We have Manuel, Christian, and Isaiah helping us out today with this doorway. Now, he's spackling all the way down, as you can see, putting the joint compound next. He's going to take the tape, put it in, and then go right over the tape with the joint compound, and then flip to the other side. Now, majority of this is going to be covered by the trim that will be getting nailed on. Once he's done this, he's going to be hitting this with the heat gun to dry it. We're going to go back to the outside and see how the siding's coming along. As you can see, we're about halfway up, coming from the side, starting from the bottom, clicking in. Once this siding's done, then we're going to come back inside. He's doing coat number 2, as you can see. It still looks pretty clean. We're not making any mess here. We're not going too heavy. We're keeping it pretty much straight and narrow here. Now we're going back to the outside. We have coat 2 on. We're cutting to go into the J channel. We're tying everything in. Once all the siding is done, we're going to come back. It's going to be dark once this is done. The next day, we'll be doing the aluminum coil wrapping around the entirety of the brick molding around the door to give us what will be our finished look. As you can see, you put the siding in, you slide it all the way down, you go to the other side, you make sure you slide it, make sure it's tight against there, then you pull it into the J channel, click it in, and then you'll be hammering home your galvanized roofing nails, but you don't hammer all the way in. You want to leave some room for expansion on those nails. As you can see, put it in as shown. Christian here will get those nails, and Christian will hammer them in until he's comfortable. Not too tight, as you can see. He leaves some space. Now it's time to install the brass hardware on the door. This is matching the other brass hardware that is in these rooms. That's why this particular color was chosen. You always want to be wary of color match and make sure everything goes. Again, this is only a prime door. This will be painted a white semi-gloss. The trim will be painted a white semi-gloss. Make sure your hardware works. Open and close the door many times over. Make sure the keys work. Make sure it locks. Make sure everything is in full working condition. Now we're using the heat gun after coat 2, after coat 3. We're trying to get ready to put a little more spackle. There's going to be a third coat of spackle we're not ready for. We are now finishing up on the siding. This is going to be the easy part, but the hard part is going to be tying the next piece in. I will show you how he does that in a moment. He's got to get his step stool, step there. You hammer this one in, same thing. You drive them in, but you leave a little bit of space because you want, in heat and contract this siding, you want it to be able to move. Otherwise, it'll warp. Otherwise, it'll bend, it'll twist, it'll pop out, and it will be very unsightly. Now, you start from the bottom. You click that last piece in. Once you hear it click and you slide it behind the J channel and it locks fully in the piece below, you bend out the siding over top. Why? Because you must nail this piece. If you put a siding in without nail, it's a travesty. It'll be loose, it'll pop, it'll be a nightmare, especially if any wind gets behind it. So you put it in, you nail where you can. Christian's going to get about 4 nails into this once he gets those in. And don't worry, this will take a bit of time. This will be very frustrating. You might miss a nail. You have very limited nail space. It's fully understandable, but you have to take your time with this. It's really what makes the look, and it really what takes it all back together and making it look like it's been there. Once he's satisfied with how much he has it nailed, he takes it from the top, he takes his palm, and he smacks it back into place. He'll hear the click. See, he hears the click each time, meaning it's locked into the piece of siding below, and all the siding is now locked into each other, and this door looks like it has been there. Now, we're done with the outside for now. We're back on the inside for coat number 3, the third and final coat. Like I said, this will not be sanded today. This is 20-minute compound for this third coat. Second and third coats were both 20-minute compound. He's spreading it. It still looks clean. It doesn't look like it's sloppy. He's not making a mess. He's not throwing too much up. He's not making it so it's unworkable. He's putting this in. He hit it with the heat gun. It's now time to turn attention to the trim. We went 84-inch legs, mitered to each side, 35 inches in between, and then you hammer it home with your finish nailer, 2.5-inch finish nails in the corners, in the center. Then it's time to take your paintable caulk or your wood putty, you put it in the 45s, you put it in, you fill all nail holes. Then you sand it down because this is going to be primed and paint ready when we leave. Now we're done for the evening. We come back after we shut everything down. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock. We'll be out of here. We come back the following day. We sand all of the spackle joint compounds so it is fully ready to paint, and the homeowner will be painting themselves. Turn our attention to the outside. We're going to be wrapping this in aluminum coil that I was telling you about. Putting our starter strips on, running in between. As you can see, you want those 45s for that trim to line up with the 45s of the J-channel to make a nice, clean, pristine look. And voila, now that it's done, we take our step back, and I think you guys can tell and probably agree with me, this looks like something that has always been there. He's putting the final nails. It's seamless coil with no nails exposed. You tuck everything behind the J-channel, you take your step back, and here is the final look where everything is in, everything is clean. He put the J-channel back, and it looks like it's always been there. Thanks for watching, guys.